Well, good morning, and thank you very much, Mark, for that very kind introduction. I have to say, though, if some of you were sitting out there doing the math, thinking about all those years and things I've done, I started when I was 10, okay? It's really a pleasure to be here with the American Academy of Physician Assistants. I was telling a good friend of mine in Washington who is HIV positive and is active in the healthcare profession as well that I was coming to speak to all of you, and he immediately said, "Oh, I love them. They do all the work." So I thought that was really just about the best endorsement that you all could get. I wanted to start with a little story to tell, and that's, I was at a dinner recently in Washington, one of these healthcare dinners that you so often go to. There were some journalists there and some policymakers and some industry people, and I was seated between two insurance CEOs. Now, I know this sounds a little bit like one of those jokes, you know, a reporter walks into a bar with two insurance executives, but this really is a true story. Now, I'm not going to name names of these insurance executives, but let me just, for the purposes of our discussion, call the CEO to my left Mr. Sunshine, and the CEO to my right Mr. Dark and Stormy. Now, we made small talk for a few minutes, but of course the subject on everybody's mind these days is the new health care law. Mr. Sunshine on my left spoke up right away. He said that one of the first things he did after President Obama signed the new law was to pick up the telephone and call the dean of the local medical school. And the two of them started brainstorming immediately about projects that they might be able to pursue in the future with this new law. He told me about several ideas at his company to move more toward higher quality, lower cost care. They've got, as you can imagine, disease management programs underway that they'd like to ramp up even further. He's expecting that he'll enroll some new customers, even in the short term, with the small business tax credits and the allowance that children up to age 26 can stay on their parents' policies. Now, he did say that there are flaws in this new law, as everyone knows, but it provides a lot of opportunities, in his view. And I think that Mr. Sunshine's attitude essentially boiled down to, change is coming, I'd rather get out in front of it. Next, I turned to Mr. Dark and Stormy on my right for his thoughts. And the first thing he said was, "I can't think of one good thing to say," which cast a little bit of a pall over the dinner table conversation. He went on to explain to me that he anticipates insurance premiums will soar as the sickest and frailest among us flood into the risk pool. Savvy shoppers will cycle on and off insurance, picking it up only when a need arises, say when they become pregnant or receive a serious diagnosis. They'll suck much more out of the system than they pay in. He sees a future of doctor shortages, state budget shortfalls, long lines, and a business model that he feels could very well fail. In fact, Mr. Dark and Stormy said to me, they're considering just simply closing shop. One dinner, two CEOs, no consensus on what the future holds for our $2.4 trillion healthcare system. On March 23rd, President Obama signed into law the most far-reaching piece of domestic policy legislation in 75 years, a bill that dramatically revamps 1/6 of the U.S. economy. Broadly speaking, the legislation is intended to bring the nation the closest it has ever been to universal coverage, extending insurance to about 32 million additional people over the next decade. It's also intended to help slow the rapid rise in medical spending. It will require every person, virtually every person in this country, to carry health insurance or face some penalties, and it will greatly expand the role of government in healthcare, largely through programs such as Medicaid. Insurance regulations are already tightening, and employers are going to be given new latitude on wellness programs. Wealthy individuals and industries such as the pharmaceutical sector and medical device makers face higher taxes. Government will use a grab bag of carrots and sticks to change the way hospitals, doctors, and other healthcare providers do business. Over time, the idea is to reward quality over quantity. Now, the majority of changes will not take effect until 2014, but as you know, some of them are already getting started this summer and fall. And you'll be hearing a great deal from President Obama and other administration officials in the coming months as they move to highlight the most politically palatable elements before those crucial November midterm elections. As my dinner with the CEOs illustrated, there are strong opinions on both sides of the healthcare debate and enormous uncertainty. Many of the measures included in the legislation are untested, and as you all well understand, it is impossible to predict human behavior where health and healthcare is concerned. Regardless of one's views on the content of this complicated $1 trillion law, most will agree that enactment of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act was a legislative feat rarely seen in modern-day politics. In terms of scope and impact, it is on par with creation of Social Security in 1935. For better or worse, President Obama will go down in history as the president who made good on a vision first articulated by Theodore Roosevelt nearly 100 years ago. The story of how it happened began inauspiciously one morning in March 2007. A young senator by the name of Barack Obama had just announced that he was seeking the presidency. Late on a Friday night, he flew across country to Las Vegas for a forum early the next morning. It was to be his first candidate forum, and the topic was health care. Well, in short, Obama fell short. He was simply outshined by rivals such as Hillary Clinton and John Edwards. When a young woman in the audience raised her hand and asked Barack Obama why she couldn't find a health care plan on his website, he stumbled and got defensive. Even Obama recognized he'd done poorly that morning, remarking to his campaign manager afterward, "I just whiffed up there." Of the myriad reactions to Obama's dismal performance that day, no one was talking or thinking about that in 3 short years he would be the healthcare president. Indeed, he almost failed several times. Last August, 2009, his chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, was so concerned about the delays and the stalemate in Congress that he convened a secret meeting of his top advisors in the White House and instructed them to quietly begin drafting a White House health care bill. 5 months later, in January of this year, a Republican named Scott Brown won the race for Ted Kennedy's Senate seat, and the health care bill was back on life support. The Obama team, stacked with veterans of the Clinton administration, decided from the outset that it would not repeat the mistakes of that 1993-94 battle. The danger, of course, was that they overlearned some of those lessons. Yes, it was a mistake for Hillary Clinton to write a bill, but Obama's hands-off approach allowed the effort to veer off track more than once during the course of the year, and also fall prey to intra-party squabbles over some of the more contentious issues, such as a public option. The Clintons made the mistake of fighting bitterly with every single interest group. Obama, on the other hand, decided to court special interests, striking early agreements with industry heavyweights such as the drug makers and the hospitals. The deal-making did, in fact, neutralize some of those potential adversaries, but it also fueled criticism that Obama was abandoning his pledge to change the culture of Washington. The healthcare debate drew in sharp relief the power of the filibuster in the modern-day Senate, or what I like to call the power of one. Stop and think about individual lawmakers like Ben Nelson, Mary Landrieu, Joe Lieberman. They were able to exert enormous influence over the process because Harry Reid was on the hunt for 60 votes in the Senate. Many will take credit or assign blame for the new law, but there are 2 people who indisputably made it happen.